Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today for our first day of University Express in our spring semester. I'm Katie Earle, the coordinator of the University Express program, and I work for the Erie County Department of Senior Services, and we're here with Jennifer Johnson from BlueCross BlueShield of Western New York. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here, and thank you to everybody who's here. You are joined, muted, and without your video showing. It's not that you've done anything wrong, it's just the settings for our program here today. And I promise you there are other people here. You're not the only one, although we'll try to make you feel special. If you have any questions throughout Jennifer's presentation, feel free to go and put those in your Q&A panel. If you're new to us today and you're on a computer, chances are you can look at the bottom right-hand side of your WebEx screen and you'll see your Q&A panel with a question mark and a box around it. And if you're on the tablet or smartphone, poke or touch your screen. That brings up your control panel, and then you'll be able to find your Q&A panel. So we hope you participate with us. And we are recording this session. I'll try to post it on our website at some point this week if everything goes as planned. So we'll thank our sponsors of the program, which is my Department of Senior Services, BlueCross BlueShield of Western New York, Excelsior Orthopedics, and Wegmans for everything they do for our program. And as always, feel free to reach out to us at Senior Services if you need anything, or at 858-8526. Now let's learn about our speaker. Jennifer Johnson has been a health promotion coordinator for government programs at BlueCross BlueShield of Western New York since 2009. For over 20 years, she has worked with older adults and Medicare Advantage plans. A graduate of Canisius College, she is a certified fitness instructor and a certified nutrition and wellness consultant, specializing in fitness and wellness for older adults. Jennifer lives in Hamburg with her husband and son. She's a voracious reader, enjoys running, yoga, and cooking, and she's virtual with us. Jennifer, thank you. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Katie. Hi, everybody. I didn't realize this was the very first day of University Express. This is approximately my 10,000th season of University Express, is what it feels like. I can't even think of how long it's been that I've been doing this. So it's very exciting to be back again. Today we're going to be talking about reading the food label. So for those of you who have been to some of my programs over the years, you know that I love the food label and I think it's so interesting. There's a lot of information there, but it can be pretty confusing. So we'll take a look at this today. So I like to start out by giving you a little bit of background. The nutrition facts label first appeared on food packaging in 1994. So it seems like we've had it forever, but it's only been since 1994. And it was revised in 2016 and then again in 2020. So that's the most recent version of the food label. It's the one we'll be looking at today. The goal all along since 1994 has been to help consumers make better choices. So a lot of people look at food labels when they shop. We're all looking for different things usually, but the idea is to provide that information so that we can make good choices at the grocery store, but also to encourage manufacturers to produce healthier foods. So as you can imagine, food manufacturers weren't really excited about the idea of putting all of this information on food labels. But in order to be, to have kind of consistency among products and to have clarity among food manufacturers to display the ingredients and other information in their foods, the idea is that once food manufacturers had to put this information out there, they wanted to make more of an effort to show that their product was good for you, healthy for you, better for you than a competing product. So that's part of the idea all along too, is to encourage manufacturers to produce healthier products. I always like to say, think of the label as a code, because I know sometimes it's just as confusing as looking at a code or a foreign language. But if you know how to read the code, everything you need to know is there. The most recent revision of the nutrition facts label last year, I think went a long way towards cracking the code. The changes that were made to the label, I think, really made things much clearer for a lot of us, but there is still some confusing information. So we're going to go through today the parts of the food label and how to read it, what information is there and what exactly you're looking at. Then we'll talk about the ingredients list. So the ingredients list isn't exactly part of the nutrition facts label, but it's something that's on the product that you're buying that most people are looking at. And then we'll talk about some other labels that you might find on food packages. So these are called front of package claims. They're not always on the front of the package. Sometimes they're on the side, sometimes they're on the top, but they're called front of package claims. So we'll get into some detail on those. All the information on the food label doesn't matter one bit if you don't know how many calories you need every day. So we'll talk a little bit about calorie needs, and then I'll show you some sample labels. So let's start out by looking at our food label. And we're going to spend quite a few minutes here because this is kind of the bulk of our program today. So when you're looking at your nutrition facts label, you can see that we start at the top. So we start at number 1 and we work our way down. So number 1 here is a highlighted section shown in green. But this product label that we're looking at is just a sample. So this, I have no idea what product this is supposedly for. It's just a sample label for some fictional product. And the nutrition facts label always starts with nutrition facts in big letters at the top. And then it tells you the number of servings per container and the serving size. Now you'll notice the serving size is in a bolder print because, believe it or not, that is the most important bit of information on the food label. And here's why. All the rest of the information, so you can see this is section 1, there's section 2, 3, and 4. Section 2, 3, and 4, it's giving you information, calories, fat, cholesterol, sodium, etc. It's giving you all that information for one serving of the food. So the most important thing you need to know is how much is a serving? Because if you don't know how much a serving is, then you don't know whether the information you're looking at is accurate. So let's say, for example, this says 2/3 of a cup. Let's use something a little more concrete. Let's say you're looking at a box of cookies and the serving size is 2 cookies. Well, that's great. What if you eat 4 cookies? Or what if you eat 6 cookies? Or what if you eat the whole box? Okay. The information on the food label is only telling you the information for one serving. So it's important to know before you look at anything else, what's the serving size? Because maybe you think that calorie number is good for 2 cookies, but it's not so good if the serving size is just 1 cookie. Okay, so we start with the serving size. Nothing else matters if we don't know the serving size. And then I think it's helpful also in that same section where it says 8 servings per container. It's helpful to know, okay, how many servings per container? So this particular product, whatever it is, the serving size is 2/3 of a cup and there's 8 servings per container. So if you took this package of food and broke it up into 8 equal parts, this is the number of calories that's in each of those 8 equal parts. So when you're reading the label, start at the top and then work your way down. Okay. In section 2, which is the section highlighted in orange or pink or salmon or whatever color it is, this section is calories. And again, it's the amount per serving. I like how on the new food labels, it reminds you, hey, this is the amount per serving, just in case you missed it up top there. So the amount per serving for this food is 230 calories. And I love the big, bold font that's used for this. If you're looking for calorie information on a food label, you cannot miss it. It pretty much jumps out and punches you in the face. It's right there. So most people, when they look at food labels, are looking for calories. So it's right there for you to see. You're not going to miss it. But remember, calories don't matter until you know what the serving size is. So for this product, it's 230 calories for in every 2/3 of a cup of the product. Now we get into the details here. So in section 3, which is the blue colored section on this, this slide, we're going to get into some of the nutrients. So we start out with total fat, and you can see total fat is in bold. So this is a category heading here. So we've got total fat, 8 grams. Saturated fat, which is a subheading of total fat, 1 gram. Trans fat, 0 grams. Now, if you're looking at a food label and you think to yourself, the total fat is 8 grams, the saturated fat is 1 gram, the trans fat is 0 grams. Where's the other 7 grams of fat? Okay. Food manufacturers are only required to show you the saturated fat and trans fat on a food label. The remainder, with the difference in the numbers, is in unsaturated fat. Okay, so we have unsaturated fats, saturated fats, and trans fats. Food manufacturers don't have to tell us about unsaturated fats because those are the fats that are considered to be healthy or heart healthy. So it isn't a requirement. Some food manufacturers will put that on there if they want to draw your attention to it. But otherwise, all you're going to see is total fat, saturated fat, and trans fats. Okay. Underneath total fat, we have cholesterol. Okay. This food, whatever it is, has 0 milligrams of cholesterol. But many foods, okay, foods that come from animals, usually do contain some amount of cholesterol. That's okay. Some people who are concerned about dietary cholesterol maybe want to see that number. I won't go down a whole path about cholesterol right now, but for the most part, we know now that it's more about our blood cholesterol levels are more about the saturated fat and trans fats that we eat rather than the amount of dietary cholesterol that we consume. But some people are sensitive to dietary cholesterol and might be looking for that on the food label. So that information is still there for you. Underneath that, we have sodium. If you have high blood pressure or you're watching your sodium intake, that's something you'll be looking for. This particular product has 160 milligrams of sodium. And then we get into carbohydrates. So this is an area of the food label that a lot of people look at for a lot of different reasons. If you have diabetes, maybe you're looking at carbohydrates. If you're doing a keto kind of diet, maybe you're looking at carbohydrates. So people are looking at that for different reasons. But our total carbohydrate for this product is 37 grams. Is that a lot? Maybe. It depends on your particular needs. There isn't really a good estimate for how many carbohydrates a person needs every day because it depends on a lot of different factors. Depends on your calorie needs, depends on whether you have diabetes, depends on lots of different factors. So we'll just take carbs as it's shown here. Total carbs, 37 grams. But it's in the subheadings that there's some interesting information here. So dietary fiber, most of us don't get enough fiber. So looking for fiber in food products is a good idea. Fiber is found only in plant foods. Okay, so for just foods that come from plants, not foods that come from animals. Underneath that, underneath fiber, we have total sugars. And this is where a huge change was made to the food label. In my opinion, the best change that was made to the food label. So we have total sugars, 12 grams. Now that information was always there. That was always on the food label. What's new is underneath that where it says includes 10 grams of added sugars. Added sugars was the big change to the food label, and you can be sure that the sugar industry fought that for a very long time. Added sugars are sugars that don't exist naturally in a food, They're sugars that were added during the manufacturing or processing process. So I'll give you an example. Applesauce, okay? If you were buying unsweetened applesauce, the section with total sugars would say includes 0 grams of added sugars because it's unsweetened. There's no sugar added to it. But under total sugars, there would be a number there because apples naturally contain some sugar. That's why they're sweet. So you'd have total sugar because there's sugar there, but none of it was added during the manufacturing process. Whereas if you bought sweetened applesauce or maybe cinnamon flavored applesauce or something like that, you'd have some added sugars there because most food manufacturers add some sugar to applesauce, okay? So that's what added sugars means. Sugars that were actually added to the product. So in some foods, you're not going to see any added sugars, but in a lot of processed foods, you will see added sugars in considerable amounts. Okay? What I really like about the added sugars is that for a long time, we couldn't compare food products appropriately. So another example would be something like yogurt. So plain yogurt, unflavored, contains some natural sugar because yogurt is made from milk and milk contains natural sugars. So if you were purchasing a 6-ounce carton of plain yogurt, it would probably have about 8 grams of sugar, okay? And that's okay, it's all natural sugar. But if you're buying a strawberry flavored yogurt, for example, it might have 12 grams of sugar, 15 grams of sugar, 25 grams of sugar, maybe more, depending on the food manufacturer. But if all we're seeing is total sugars, that doesn't tell us how much sugar was added during the manufacturing. Now, with this addition to the food label of added sugars, you can stand in the grocery store in the yogurt section, and you can hold a Dannon strawberry yogurt in one hand and a Yoplait strawberry yogurt in the other hand, and you can say, one has 8 grams of added sugars and the other has 12 grams of added sugars. I'm going to buy the one with the 8 grams of added sugars. We couldn't do that before when all we were seeing was total sugar. So added sugar, including added sugars, really opens it up because added sugars are the biggest source of unnecessary calories in the American diet. They're a big part of the reason for the obesity crisis that we have in this country. So being able to compare added sugars in the grocery store will make a really big difference in some of the choices that we make when we're grocery shopping. Okay, last but not least in that blue section, we have protein. This particular food has 3 grams of protein. Some people like to keep an eye on their protein. Again, protein needs will vary from person to person. But this is something that some people look for when they're looking at food labels. Okay, section 4, which is the section that's in gray. If you're used to reading food labels, you'll notice that this section looks a little bit different. This is the section that tells us about some of our vitamins and minerals. It used to be that this section contained information on calcium, iron, vitamin A, and vitamin C. And you can see that it's changed. Now the vitamins and minerals that are included are vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. And the reason for that, vitamin A and vitamin C were removed from the food label because we rarely see deficiencies in those vitamins. So people weren't really using that information because they didn't really need it. Whereas we have a lot of deficiencies in vitamin D among Americans, and we have a lot of deficiencies of potassium, which is kind of scary when you realize the potassium is found in just about every plant food. So that tells you right there that we don't eat enough plants. So the information that's on here now is helpful for people who are monitoring their vitamin D intake. A lot of people look at calcium, okay? Especially if you're concerned about bone health or osteoporosis, you're probably looking at that. Iron is something that people struggle with as well, especially as we get older. And potassium is something that, potassium kind of goes two ways. If you're deficient, you might be looking to increase your potassium intake. And sometimes people with kidney problems need to make sure they don't get too much potassium. So that might be something that you might be looking for as well. So this is what our new food label looks like. You can see that it's a lot more detailed than the previous food labels. You probably started seeing some of these changes in 2018. So you might look at this and say, this food label isn't new. It actually is. It's the newest. The changes started in 2018, but they weren't finalized. Food manufacturers didn't have to fully comply until 2020. So that's why we say the changes took place in 2020, even though they started before that. So my favorite change is the added sugars, and I like the big punch in the face from the calorie number as well. So I'm a big fan of the new food labels. Okay, we'll spend a few minutes talking about the ingredients list here. I'm just going to keep an eye on the time to make sure we don't go too far over. For those of you who are accustomed to reading food labels, you probably know that ingredients are listed in descending order according to weight. So the largest ingredient is the first one listed, and the smallest ingredient is the last one listed. Why should you check your ingredients list? Well, you want to check for allergens, anything that you might be looking to avoid, maybe a particular food dye, or maybe a particular additive or emulsifier, or maybe you're looking for words that tell you that a food contains gluten. Maybe you're vegan and you're looking for words that tell you that a food contains some sort of animal product. So those are all good reasons to check the ingredients list. Many food manufacturers put allergen information, gluten information somewhere on the front of their package, but you never know what you might be looking for. You know, I know that there's some people, I have a young son, I know there's other parents who look for, you know, dyes and things like that. So check your ingredients list for things that you're looking to avoid. And remember that an ingredient can have lots of different names. So if you're trying to cut back on sugar, for example, remember that sugar isn't always just sugar in the ingredients list. It can have lots of different names. So something like high fructose corn syrup, that's sugar. Malt syrup, any kind of syrup for that matter, is sugar. Fruit juice concentrate is sugar, okay? Same thing goes for salt. If you're looking to cut back on salt, anything with the word sodium in it, sodium phosphate, monosodium glutamate, even baking soda, all right? We don't think about baking soda so much, but anything with the word sodium or soda contains sodium. And this one is my favorite, something like fleur de sel. That's just the French way of saying sea salt, okay? But you could put that in your ingredients list, and it just means salt. So look for those other sugar or salt words or other, remember that an ingredient can go by lots of different names. When you're looking for whole grains, I know a lot of us are shopping for whole grain products. Make sure you're looking for the word whole in the ingredients list. So if you're looking for a whole grain bread, make sure the very first ingredient is whole something, whole wheat or whole rye, okay? If it doesn't say whole, it's not a whole grain. Front of package claims. I'm going to show you some pictures of these two so you have a better idea of what we're talking about. But types of front of package claims include things like comparisons to other products. So something like, this light ranch dressing contains half the fat of regular ranch dressing. Okay, so it can can compare itself to another product that the same company offers, or it can compare it to sort of an industry standard. You know, typical ranch dressing contains this, and our product contains half the fat. You might also see things like information on the content of a specific nutrient. So some examples would be, contains 50% of daily calcium requirements, or this food is a high fiber food. Okay. Statements, symbols, or vignettes that suggest a food has a relationship with a health condition. So this is a really common one. You'll see this on packages of oats, and you'll see it on packages of Cheerios. 3 grams of soluble fiber from oatmeal daily in a diet low in saturated fat and cholesterol may reduce the risk of heart disease. This cereal has 2 grams per serving. Okay. Highlights of nutrition facts. Very frequently you'll see this. So I think of it as a Cliff's Notes version of the nutrition facts. On the front of the package, you'll see a series of little bubbles or squares showing you the number of calories per serving, the amount of fat, the amount of fiber. It's the same information from the nutrition facts label, just in a condensed form on the front of the package. And then all kinds of other information: gluten-free, lactose-free, vegan, keto-friendly is one I see sometimes now. So there's all kinds of stuff that food manufacturers can put on the packages outside of the nutrition facts label. So here's the real question, right? Can you trust these claims on the packages? Yes, you can. For the most part, any information that is on the front or side of a food package has to be approved. Food manufacturers can't just go willy-nilly and put all kinds of nonsense on their packages. But you do have to know the facts, because while the information has to be approved, that doesn't mean that it can't be misleading. So you have to know what the intention is. So things like light or reduced fat, reduced calories, less sodium, it compares the product to a similar food or an established product. So here's an example. Reduced fat Oreos have less fat than regular Oreos, okay? They can't compare they can't say reduced fat Oreos have less fat than than Chips Ahoy, okay? It has to be Oreos to Oreos. Or like in our ranch dressing example, light ranch dressing has less fat than regular ranch dressing, okay? So it's got to be a comparable product. You can't say light ranch dressing has less fat than blue cheese dressing. You have to be comparing apples to apples. When it comes to claims about specific nutrients, if you see the words high or an excellent source of fiber, for example, or excellent source of vitamin A, it means that the food contains 20% or more of the daily value of the nutrient. So that's good, right? If you're looking for something, if you find something that's an excellent source of fiber, it means that it's got at least 20% of how much we're supposed to have in a day. If you see the words a good source of, this cereal is a good source of fiber, it means that the food contains between 10 and 19% of the daily value. And if you see low, it means that the food contains 5% or less of the daily value. Now, is low always bad? No, because no food manufacturer is going to tell you, hey, this food is a low source of fiber. They're only going to tell you low if it's a good thing. So this might pertain to something like a low sodium food, or a low cholesterol food, a low fat food. So they're only going to tell you it's low if low is a good thing. And I'll show you some images in a few minutes here. All right. So I started out by saying that the first thing you have to look at is the serving size on a food label, because without knowing the serving size, the amount of calories doesn't matter, okay? But also, the amount of calories doesn't matter if you don't know how many calories you need every day, okay? That's like saying, that would be like saying, I make $500 a week, but my rent is $300 a week, or my rent is $800 a week, okay? If you don't know how much you need, it doesn't matter what you have. So how many calories do you need every day? Well, it depends on a lot of different factors. So you can see here, I have this slide divided up by gender, first of all. So men usually need more calories every day than women. Not always, but usually. Men are usually bigger and they usually have more muscle mass. So that means they usually need more calories. And then you can see we're also divided up here by age. So men between the ages of 31 and 50, because I figure nobody is below 31 probably, between the ages of 31 and 50, men need between 2,200 and 3,000 calories every day. After age 50, men need between 2,000 and 2,800 calories per day. Now that's still a pretty wide range. So there's some other factors at play here. How tall are you? How much do you weigh? Are you trying to lose weight or are you trying to maintain your weight? Are you underweight and now you're trying to gain weight? How active are you? Do you walk 5 miles every day? Do you sit on the couch all day long? There's a lot of things that go into this here. So if we take, let's say a 60-year-old man who's very active, who walks or runs or bikes every day, burns a lot of energy, that man is going to need a lot more calories every day than a 60-year-old man who sits on the couch and just gets up a couple times a day to go to the bathroom. So that first man might be more up towards that 2,800 calories end of the spectrum, where the other man is going to be more down by the 2,000 range. And same is true for women. Between the ages of 31 and 50, anywhere from 1,800 to 2,200 calories per day. Over age 50, between 1,600 and 2,200. And again, your height, your weight, your age, your activity level is all going to make a big difference. So I strongly recommend to people to use a calorie calculator, and some are better than others. This is one that I like. It's not perfect, but it's very good. This is at the website, the government website, myplate.gov. So if you're familiar with MyPlate, it's what used to be the food pyramid. It's that little plate divided into 4 sections with a cup at the top. So if you visit this website, myplate.gov/myplate-plan, it will take you to a calorie calculator, and it will ask you for information on your height, your weight, your age, your activity level. Ladies, it will ask you if you're pregnant or nursing, and it will spit out a pretty good calorie budget. And that will give you a clearer idea of about how many calories you need every day. Then when you're looking at a food that has 230 calories per serving, you can put that into the context of your overall calorie needs or calorie budget for the day. So you know, is 230 calories for this food worth it, right? How much of my calorie budget is that going to take up? So if you don't know what your calorie budget is, I strongly recommend that you check this out. Also, if you wear a fitness tracker, like a Fitbit or a Garmin or something like that, those usually have something built in that will help you figure out your calorie needs as well. So that can be helpful, and that can usually be a little more precise because it's something that you're wearing and it's I'm having a lot of trouble speaking today. It's monitoring your physical activity. So it'll be a little more specific to you about how much energy you use and how many calories you're actually using every day. Okay, so let's look at some sample labels. So this, this product here, we've got Arnold brand healthy multigrain bread. And I will encourage you to be skeptical of foods that are called multigrain, because multigrain does not have to mean whole grain. And we don't know for sure because I don't have the ingredients here. But multigrain does not always mean whole grain. Multigrain can mean a bunch of refined grains. So just keep that in mind. This would definitely be a situation where you'd want to look at the ingredients, and you'd want the first ingredient to be whole something. So you can see on the front of package here, we've got a good source of fiber. So we know that's between 10 and 19% of the daily value. We've got no artificial preservatives, no artificial colors or flavors. And then here we've got these little bubbles that show you the condensed version of the nutrition facts: 110 calories, 0 grams of saturated fat, et cetera, et cetera. So now on the label, we see the serving size is 1 slice, okay, which is usually, but not always, what your serving size would be for bread. And there's 16 servings per container. Amount per serving, calories are 110, so 100 calories per slice. So if you made a sandwich with 2 slices of bread, you'd have to multiply everything here on the label by 2. So underneath that, we've got total fat. You can see here, it does show you some of the unsaturated fats, right? This is a really good example of how the food labels can be a little bit tricky. So you'll notice it says total fat 2 grams, but it says 0 grams of saturated fat, 0 grams of trans fat, 1 gram of polyunsaturated fat, and 0 grams of monounsaturated fats. Well, those are the only kind of fats there are. So how can there be 2 grams of total fat? Because a lot of the time on food labels, food manufacturers are permitted to put 0 when really the amount is 0.5 grams or less. So you might have here, it might be 1 gram of polyunsaturated fat and 0.4 grams of monounsaturated fat and 0.4 grams of saturated fat and 0.2 grams of trans fat or something like that. But it's all going to say 0. So food labels can be a little bit sneaky that way. 0 grams of cholesterol, 160 milligrams of sodium, and then total carbohydrates. So we see fiber, 3 grams of dietary fiber. And if you look over at the percent daily value, you see that it says 11% of our daily value. And that's just what we saw in the information on the front of package claims. If something says it's a good source of fiber, it has to be between 10 and 19% of the daily value for that nutrient. And so here we're looking at 11%. 2 grams of total sugars, 2 grams of added sugars. So that means all the sugars in this product were added. There's no natural sugars in this product. And 5 grams of protein. Then underneath that are vitamins and minerals, 45 grams of calcium, a little bit less than a milligram of iron, 90 milligrams of potassium. So all in all, not a bad choice. I always tell people, look for a bread that has at least 3 grams of fiber per slice, okay? While this says multigrain, if I had to guess, I would guess that this is probably a whole grain bread, because I don't believe a multigrain bread would have 3 grams of fiber per slice. So this is probably a pretty good choice. Okay. Move to my next slide here. No, there we go. This is a carton of yogurt. it's a quart of yogurt rather than an individual serving. And the reason I know that is because right underneath nutrition facts, it says about 5 servings per container. And the serving size is 3/4 of a cup. Something interesting that happened when the food labels were being revamped is that some of the serving sizes were adjusted as well. So serving sizes, we tend to think of serving sizes as being prescriptive, as in, this is how much of this yogurt you should be eating. When actually, serving sizes are meant to be reflective. They're meant to reflect what the average person would serve him or herself, okay? So it isn't necessarily saying 3/4 of a cup is the right amount to eat. It's saying, if I handed you this tub of yogurt and a bowl and a spoon, you'd spoon out about 3/4 of a cup for yourself, okay? So it used to be that yogurt, servings of yogurt were considered to be 1 cup. So if you bought a quart of yogurt, it would say 4 servings per container. But because most of us usually buy yogurt in individual servings, which are 6-ounce servings or 3/4 of a cup, that's the amount we're used to eating. And so now if you served yourself yogurt out of a larger container, that's about what you'd serve yourself, is 3/4 of a cup. That's the amount that we're accustomed to. So we did see serving sizes change for some products. It was the first time in a long time that serving sizes had been adjusted. So if you're used to reading food labels, you might see some changes in some of your favorite products. Yogurt was one, ice cream was another, soda, there were some changes to that. So, and again, remember, it's not telling us how much to eat, it's just telling us how much people usually eat. So underneath that, in our 3/4 of a cup, we have about 130 calories per serving. Our fat all looks good here, cholesterol, sodium. Like to draw your attention to the sugar, all right? 26 grams of carbohydrate, 0 grams of fiber, because yogurt is an animal product, right? It comes from milk. There's no fiber in milk. 22 grams of total sugar, which sounds like a lot, but in a serving of plain yogurt, you'd have about 8 grams of sugar from the milk. And sure enough, this food contains 16 grams of added sugars. So that gives us 16 plus our 8 grams of natural sugar gives us 22 grams of sugar. Okay. No, I can't do math. We'd have 6 would be 6 grams of natural sugar in this yogurt. And then protein is 5 grams. You can see also here, the food manufacturer wants you to know how much vitamin A is in this product. They don't have to tell you, but they want to, so there it is. Okay. And then our ingredients over here on the side, milk, sugar, and you can see we have sugar is the second ingredient, and then the 4th ingredient is fructose. Fructose is also sugar. Okay, it's another sugar word. So there's more than one type of sugar in this product. Here's our friend, the Quaker Oat man. I wanted you to see the front of package claim here in the little heart. As part of a heart-healthy diet, the soluble fiber in oatmeal can help reduce cholesterol. And to the right of that very fine print you see down there is that statement of 3 grams of soluble fiber in oatmeal daily can help reduce the risk of heart disease, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that's the thing that I read to you earlier. So this is a really good example of a front of package claim. And then on the back, this is an old food label. I couldn't find a newer one, but you can see our serving size is 1/2 cup. Calories is 150 calories per 1/2 cup. Total fat, again, they want you to see the unsaturated fat here, fiber, and this one I really like because not only does it show you fiber, it shows you the different kinds of fiber, soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. Okay. and soup. So a couple of things here I wanted you to see. On the front of the can of soup, to the right, we've got that little American Heart Association seal. Okay, so you'll see some organizations kind of certifying a food. The American Heart Association, the American Diabetes Association, whatever. So this food company wants you to know, hey, the American Heart Association thinks we're a good product. Underneath that, there's some fine print. While many factors affect heart disease, diets low in saturated fat and cholesterol may help reduce the risk of something. So you've got your little fine print there too that tells you why the American Heart Association thinks this is a good product. And then on the back, what I really wanted you to see here is this double column food label. This, again, a change that was added with this newer version of the food label. In products where it is reasonably expected that a person might consume the entire product, okay, the entire container, you'll see this. So it's telling you the serving size is 1 cup, but this is a can of soup. So a lot of the time, a person is going to eat the entire can of soup. And if so, it's going to tell you what the nutrition facts for the whole can would be. So we've got the information per serving in that middle column here. So per serving, 80 calories. So that's going to be per 1 cup of soup. Then your fat, cholesterol, sodium, et cetera, et cetera. But what if you eat the whole container? Well, it isn't exactly doubling it because it says about 2 servings per container. So per container, it would be 140 calories, and then the corresponding information for if you ate the whole can of soup. So you will see this information on cans of soup. You'll see it on bottles of pop. So if you buy, for example, a 20-ounce bottle of pop, plastic ones that come out of a vending machine, a serving of pop is considered to be 8 ounces, which is the amount you would pour yourself if you were pouring out of, say, a 2-liter bottle. But if you have a 20-ounce bottle of pop, you're probably going to drink the whole thing. So you'll see this kind of label on bottles of pop. Sometimes you'll see it on pints of ice cream, okay? Because sometimes people will eat the whole pint of ice cream. So it has that information there. Packages of granola bars where there's 2 bars in the foil package, things like that. Okay, nobody has ever opened a granola bar and eaten only one of the bars. You're going to eat both of them. So you'll see this dual food label on there, which I think is really nice. I love the changes to the food label. I think it's been really great. So a quick summary, and then I think we'll have a few minutes for some questions. Nutrition facts labels are the best way to compare foods and choose the healthier options. I love that you can compare added sugars to added sugars now. I think that's great. And you've always been able to compare serving size and calorie count and fat content. This is just one more addition that lets you choose the healthiest options in the grocery store. When you're reading your label, start at the top, check the serving size and the calories first, because if you don't know that, the rest of the information is meaningless. Know your calorie budget and use the nutrition facts labels to help you stay within it. And if you need more help, talk to your doctor or maybe check with your health plan to help connect you with a registered dietitian. A registered dietitian can help you meal plan. They can help you plan shopping lists and menus and figure out, okay, how many carbohydrates do I need every day? How much protein should I be getting? And if you, particularly if you have a medical condition like diabetes or heart disease, there's way more than we could cover in an hour. So working with a registered dietitian is always a good idea. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and can see if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was really wonderful for all the information. We have a couple questions here. So the first one I'm seeing is, what is an acceptable amount of trans fat on a food label?
Really good question. The only acceptable amount of trans fat on a food label is 0, for a couple of reasons. Trans fat is the worst kind of fat that we consume. We know now it's far worse for us than even saturated fat. Trans fats tell our body to increase our bad cholesterol and lower our good cholesterol. Okay, so we know that it's a driving force behind heart disease in this country. So that's reason 1. We shouldn't be eating it anyway. Reason 2 is because the FDA has actually required food manufacturers to remove trans fats from all products. So you should not be finding trans fats on food labels, because that went into effect also in 2020. It is expected that there may be some product run out. So you may still find some product in the grocery store that does contain some trans fat, but that is all expected to be done and out of our food supply by the end of this year. Trans fats normally are found in very highly processed, shelf-stable products. So that is why you might find them still in the grocery store, because they can sit on a grocery store shelf for a really long time. So the only acceptable number is 0 for multiple reasons.
Okay, thank you
But
for
very
that
good question.
Next question I'm seeing is, what does natural flavor mean?
Oh my goodness. Natural flavors drive me crazy. I don't know exactly what it means. I wish I did, because it's not something that you can really just like look up. So what they're telling you if you're looking at a product, and I'll use this as an example because this is my own personally, this drives me crazy. If you're buying like a flavored seltzer or a flavored sparkling water, a lot of times you'll see, on the ingredients list, you'll see carbonated water, maybe a little sodium if it's a seltzer, and then natural flavors. Well, that drives me nuts. I want to know exactly what the natural flavors are. So I don't buy them because I want to know exactly what's in it. But natural flavors are basically telling you, all it's really telling you is we're getting the flavoring for this product from some natural product. So it isn't artificial in that it's not something that is man-made. However, the natural flavor, we're getting it from some food that exists in nature, but they don't have to tell you where it comes from or how they get it out of the natural food and put it into your seltzer or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is because we aren't really able to find out, and it drives me nuts. So for me, I usually try not to buy products that say natural flavors because I don't know what it is, and I don't trust the food manufacturers of America well enough to put it into my body. But that's just me.
All right, thank you for that. Next question. Can you please repeat the difference between soluble and insoluble fiber, and which is better to reduce cholesterol in your body?
Oh, good question. So soluble fiber, all fibers are soluble or insoluble. Soluble fibers dissolve in water, so they mix with the water and fluids in our bodies, okay? And they form sort of like a gel. Soluble fiber is the kind of fiber that helps to lower cholesterol levels and lower blood sugar levels, okay? So that's why you see on packages of oatmeal, soluble fiber reduces your risk of heart disease, blah, blah, blah. Because soluble fiber is the one that's good for our cholesterol. Soluble fiber is found definitely in oats, okay? Oats have the most soluble fiber of any grain, but you're also going to find them in other whole grains as well. You find them in beans, nuts, vegetables, fruits. As long as you're eating a rich plant diet, or a plant-rich diet, I guess, you're getting soluble fiber. But if you're looking to give your soluble fiber intake a boost, the best way to do it is oatmeal, honestly. Oats make a really big difference because they have a lot more soluble fiber compared to other grains. Insoluble fiber does not mix with water. Instead, it absorbs water. So think of insoluble fiber like a sponge, okay? If you take a dry sponge and you immerse it in water, it's going to absorb the water, but you still have a sponge. You don't have something new and different. You just have a wet sponge instead of a dry sponge. So insoluble fiber absorbs water, and insoluble fiber is what we sometimes call roughage. So it's the stuff that bulks up our stools and makes it easier to go to the bathroom. It keeps us regular, we say. And we find insoluble fiber also in grains, all kinds of grains, fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, all the same places. So again, if you're eating a lot of plants, you're getting plenty of both kinds of fiber. But most people aren't. So most people don't get nearly enough. Most people only get about half the fiber we need every day.
Wow. Okay.
I love fiber. I love talking about fiber. It makes such a difference.
I can tell how excited you are about fiber.
I'm such a nutrition nerd. I love talking about it.
Well, we appreciate you. Next question I'm seeing is, this person is a diabetic on insulin. They're wondering if BlueCross BlueShield offers nutrition management.
Yes. What I would recommend is if they reach out to the number on the back of their card and ask for the nurse, the nurse line, they can send them over there. It may depend exactly on what plan you have. But start there and have them ask for the healthcare services line.
Okay. Thanks, Jennifer. Mm-hmm. So last question I'm seeing here is, do whole grain products tend to have more carbs?
Yes, they do. They tend to have more carbs. Well, let me think on that for a second. You know, maybe not necessarily, because whole grain products tend to have more starches as well as fiber, but refined grain products like white pasta, white rice tend to have more sugars. So, and both sugars and starches are carbohydrates. So not necessarily. Also, if you're looking at it from the perspective of like a keto perspective or a low carb perspective, your whole grain products, because of the fiber, are going to help you stay full longer, which can help with overeating. So not knowing exactly what the basis for the question is, it's hard for me to give specific advice, but I would say not necessarily, because refined grain products break down very quickly into sugar in our body, much quicker than whole grains. So if that's if that's kind of the perspective of the question, then it isn't necessarily going to be a better choice.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. And we're coming up on time here, but there's maybe a couple questions that might have quick answers, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
This one is, what is the daily value for saturated fat?
You want to try to keep your saturated fat intake to no more than 10% of your daily calories. So again, it's going to depend on how many calories you need each day.
Okay, thank you. And then if counting carbs, is fiber subtracted from carbs?
I believe so. But keep in mind, I am not a diabetes educator. So you'd want to double check on that, but I believe it is. because it stabilizes your blood sugar.
All right, thank you. And then last question for today, how can we know what's in baked goods from a bakery or even a store bakery?
Yeah, that's a tough one. There are some foods that are not required to carry labels, particularly smaller producers, like you might find in a, if you went to a local bakery, for example. If you're shopping at like Tops or Wegmans bakery, you can go on their websites and they do have nutrition information for their baked goods. So you can get that information there. Otherwise, the best that I can tell you is if you use a calorie counting app like MyFitnessPal or the Fitbit app or something like that, what I will usually do is I go in to the app and I kind of approximate, I'll say, oh, I had a chocolate cupcake with vanilla buttercream frosting, and I'll take, and you'll get a whole bunch of results from different manufacturers, and I'll take kind of the midline one, the middle of the road number of calories. Because otherwise, yeah, it's really, there's no way to know.
Okay. Well, thank you for the information, Jennifer.
Sure.
And that wraps up all the questions. So we'll have Jennifer back here on May 24th at 2 p.m. for Fat Fact.
Yes.
So we hope you join us. And Jennifer, thank you as always. You're wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
All right. Take care.